Motocross Action is here and we are testing the 2022 Husqvarna TC125 Two Stroke, and I have my friend Martin Castelo riding the bike.
Hey guys, I'm Martin. I'm a current supercross racer. I race for the JMC Motorsports Husqvarna team. I'm pretty familiar with the 250 4-stroke, but not too familiar with this.
So we're gonna break down the bike in this week's video, and excited to share with you all we know about the Husqvarna TC125. All right guys, we had some fun today. The 2022 Husqvarna TC125 is a great bike. It comes back for the new year with all the same great upgrades it got last year. Back in 2021, it got some thicker inner clutch hub sleeves to build up durability on the clutch. It also got the new WP Exact air forks that came across all of the Austrian bikes, the Gas, KTM, and Husqvarna model range. The forks are way, way better. We talk about it in all of our KTM Husky Gas videos. They got bigger air bypass notches and oil bypass notches that just allow the forks to be a lot more plush. Also, in 2021, this bike and the rest of the Husqvarna motocross model range came with lowered suspension. So that's back for 2022, something that we really like. Corners better, lowers the center of gravity, and just overall is a great attribute about the Husqvarna model range. The only real update it got for 2022 is a Brembo hydraulic actuation on the clutch. So prior to this, KTM had Brembo, Husqvarna had Magura clutches. The difference was, well, originally Magura was having lots of issues at the slave cylinder. I personally had issues with them on my race bikes before I came to Motocross Action. The Motocross Action Wrecking Crew, we've always had issues with the Magura slave cylinders from back in the day. The last few model years, I think 19 and 20 and 21, the Magura clutch was a lot better. But for 2022, the Husky became even more like the KTM. It's kind of sad that that extra difference is gone now. So now both KTM and Husqvarna come with that Brembo hydraulic actuation. The Brembo clutch, long story short, has more of a pop feel, more of a grabby feel. The Magura clutch was a little bit smoother and less, had a little bit less feel. So people did prefer Brembo over the Magura, and that's probably why Husky updated it. The only other updates for the 2022 model is it's got the blue seat, it's got some updated graphics, but other than that, this bike is exactly the same as it was last year. One update it did get last year that I should mention is it got a roller actuated throttle body. It makes it a little bit more durable, a little bit smoother at the throttle, so not a huge difference, not something that you're really gonna notice until maybe you start messing around with the throttle body on your handlebars. As mentioned, the lower suspension platform, that is a huge difference between the Husky and the KTM and the Gas model ranges. Husky is about an inch lower, so they shortened the forks 10 millimeters, made them totally different forks. They're shortened. They also updated the bell crank and the linkage, and also added a longer seal head on the shock to lower the rear end down to shorten the travel in the shock just a little bit. So it brings the whole bike down. Overall, I really like it. I've raced on the Husky 250 Two-Stroke at the World Two-Stroke Championship at Glen Helen. I really like that. I actually raced with stock suspension on it too, and that just goes to show how much faith I have in that bike. It was fun to have my buddy Martin Castelo out here riding the bike today. Before this, he had only ridden a Husky 150 and it was a full built race bike. Today he was on the bone stock TC125, and he did point out some cool things for us. He said he was struggling to get on the power coming out of the corners, especially for a guy like him adjusting from the FC 250 4-stroke model to the 125 bone stock 2-stroke. It's a lot different. So we had some tight corners here at State Fair, some good ruts coming out of them, and he was having to downshift a lot and really ride the clutch to get out of those corners. One thing that we did is we backed out the power valve. The power valve adjuster opens and closes a flap inside the engine, and what that basically does is the power valve, if it's kept closed, it allows you to roll on the throttle, and then as you get further into the gas, it opens up more and really lets you get the full power of the 125 engine. By backing out the Robertson wrench, it's kind of a weird square tool. We used a flathead screwdriver today because we didn't have that tool. By backing that out, we went one turn all the way out from flush, and that allowed the power valve to open up quicker, allowed Martin to get on the gas quicker and carry more momentum and higher RPMs coming out of the corner. So we didn't have to run the clutch as much coming out of corners. Another update about the suspension on the Husky 125 is that came last year in 2021 is this bike got a new lift height setting at the mid valve. So WP and all fork companies, they find and they create valving at the mid valve and the base valve, and that's where they stack the shims, and that's where the oil flows through, and as it presses through those shims, it's dampening the suspension, causing it to slow it down when you're landing off jumps instead of blowing all the way through the stroke. Those shims and the oil blowing through the shims, that's what's creating that suspension setting. And so prior to 2021, the mid valves actually didn't have any shims on Husqvarna air forks. It's pretty wild, and I was super surprised and really blown away when I first heard about this. But Two Strokes and cross-country bikes, they wanted to make the shims so light that they were actually having durability issues breaking them. The WP technicians were. So for 2021, and it also carried over to 2022, they have a new lift height setting. Basically, it works like a trampoline valve in the mid valve. The trampoline is a kind of a cup-like cavity. The new lift height setting, the only difference is that it has a small spring in there that helps close the shims, basically just helps the forks and adds a little bit of strength and durability to the suspension. So basically what that does, it makes the WP air forks for two strokes and cross-country bikes much better for 2021 and 2022, and we like the suspension and we like the air forks, especially with that extra 3-pound weight savings that come on the TC125. Comparing the power on the Husky TC125 to its older brother, the KTM 125, this bike is definitely a little more muted. It's kind of the same thing across the range for Husqvarna 4-strokes and 2-strokes. The closed off air box that it has doesn't allow as much air into the engine. Engines, they need air. They're like vacuums. They're just trying to suck air as quickly as they can. When that air gets closed off, it limits the amount of power that these bikes can make. So comparing this Husky to the 125 from KTM is a little bit more of a mellow bike, and something that we wouldn't really recommend to a pro level rider who's looking for as much power as they can get out of their bike. When you're comparing KTM and Husqvarna in the power department, we always recommend KTM for that extra little bit of girth that comes out of the corners. So we really like the Husqvarna TC125. We've spent a lot of time on this bike last year and just over the years. We're excited to keep riding it. There are a few things we want you guys to keep your eyes on if you have this model in your garage, or if you're thinking about buying a 2022 TC125, you should keep your eyes on the sprocket bolts. These are something that we recommend for guys on gas, KTM and Husqvarna. Keep your eyes on the sprocket bolts, as sometimes they're known to come loose, and it's just a safety item. It's something that you should check on all motorcycles, but be particularly diligent to check it on the Husqvarna TC125. Also, the spokes. If you check the spoke next to the rim lock and that one's loose, that's usually an indicator that the rest of the ones are loose. So always check the spokes, especially when the wheels are brand new. Also, we turned around the rear brake spring on the TC125 today. Sometimes our boots will press against that when we're squeezing the bike, and that'll actually push that spring out. That spring is used to hold the rear brake up so it doesn't ride on the brake pads and really overheat your brakes. So keep your eyes on that. Make sure you don't break it or lose it. That is one problem that we have with KTM and Huskies. Also, I always double check the shift lever. I love the shift lever. I've mentioned this in our Husky 350 video, our KTM 450 video that we recently shot. The shift lever is awesome, and it's super easy to take on and off on the Austrian engines, but the 8mm bolt does come loose sometimes, so just keep your eyes on it. It's not something that's gonna fall off every time you ride. So if you don't check your nuts and bolts very often, you should, no matter what bike you're riding, but especially check the shift lever on the Husqvarna TC125. When it comes to the air forks, also, I should mention that you guys need to check the air pressure. So WP Exact air forks, we love them. We especially love all the new updates they got in 2021, but these forks are gonna be horrible if you don't check your air pressure, if you don't monitor it throughout the day, and if you don't bleed the little extra bleed screws that are on the forks as well. So the forks, check your air pressure every day. Husqvarna, KTM, and Gas, they'll give you a WP air fork pump. We like to put the Works Connection extension on ours. I don't think we had it today, but we like to put that on there. Just makes it easier to get in there, get your fingers on there. Also the bleeders, those, as the bike heats up through the day, air pressure builds up in the forks. You need to bleed those screws to make sure your forks are working at 100% capabilities. Rounding it off, the 2022 Husqvarna TC125 weighs in at 192 pounds, so it's super light on the scales. It comes with an impressive 37.6 horsepower at its 11,200 RPM peak. So that's the peak horsepower that comes on this bike. The peak torque that comes on the TC125 engine is 17.83, so it's pretty impressive for a 125 two-stroke. The price comes in at $7,599 for this model. That's just $100 more than the KTM 125, its older brother. So that's all for our test video on the 2022 Husky TC125 two-stroke. We had a blast on this thing today, and we love riding this bike. We always love building it up and racing the two-stroke national at Glen Helen and lots of local 125 races as well. So we got a lot in store for this bike. We do know a lot about this bike as well, so check out motocrossactionmag.com. We'll have all kinds of information on this model as well as other bikes we've been testing, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well to stay up to date with our latest videos, as we consistently have been adding lots of videos there, and we're doing our best to keep you guys entertained at home. Before you go, click the thumbnails now to see some of our more recent test videos.